Hello and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to explore some long forgotten board games. Games that came with comic annuals years and years ago. They were designed for children, so they're not going to be anything special, but I think they're worth a look. First up is the Dungeons and Dragons Annual from 1987. And we have a Snakes and Ladders style game. Since this game comes with no instructions, I've decided to use 2 dice to speed things up. Now it's normal Snakes and Ladders rules, but with a Dungeons and Dragons twist. And those vary depending on which square you land on. If you land on the hero character, they'll help move you forward, but if you land on the villain, they'll set you back. And of course, landing on the snake will send you slithering back a dozen spaces or so. Player 2 gets a little help from Bobby, as he smashed forward to space number 30. Player 1 is trailing behind quite far now, but as you know, this is a game of chance, and anything can happen. And Sheila vanishes from space number 36 and reappears near the end at space number 47. And that is a huge boost. Although she rolls a 2, she's back down a few spaces, but that doesn't matter anyway, the other player wins. Next we're going to take a look at Inspector Gadget from 1986. And this is a typical race to the finish formula. The only instructions state they must throw a switch to start and they must finish exactly on space number 39. The frustrating thing about this game is that the spaces have not been numbered correctly. Only the footprints are numbered and they don't account for the picture spaces in between, so it's very easy to miscount when moving. Because Inspector Gadget is a bit of a klutz, it doesn't always help you when you land in these spaces, although it does use some of his commonly used gadgets, such as his extendable neck, extendable legs, his gadget springs, and his go-go copter hat. This player lands on the hazard square, and the only way off is to roll a 6, and that alone could cost you the game. This guy slips on some oil and goes back 3 spaces. And the only real problem with having to land on an exact number is that you end up with a backlog, and in this case, whoever rolls the number 1 wins. So that was a fun little game, didn't take too long to complete. Next up we have Spider-Man from 1985, and this is the deadly checkerboard game. All you have to do is roll a dice and progress forward, but watch out for the red squares as they contain hazards. For the counters I'm using the zombie-sized Spider-Man and a Hulk, and that's all fine until I reach the crease in the centre and they all fall down. Well, so far slow progress. That is until the Hulk is catapulted back to square number 1. The next few turns pass uneventful. Spider-Man maintains his lead until he steps on a red square, and is told to move back to space number 22. In this type of game you always have the option of making it a little bit more difficult, for instance, landing on the last square on the exact number. All in all, this was completed in less than 10 minutes. Next up we have Super Ted from 1992, and this is probably the most simplest one out of the whole lot, as it's aimed at a younger age group, and all you have to do is roll a dice, try to avoid the island and get to the end. You can see there's quite clearly a grid pattern, but what is not explained is if the islands count as 1 space or 3. So for me, I've counted them as 3 and it makes the game a little bit more difficult. If you happen to land on an island, you'll have to move back a certain number of spaces or miss a turn. And this player just landed on Pirate Isle where he has to miss a turn, and the next one had to go back 3 spaces. So despite being a very small game board, it can take a little while to complete. But eventually, somebody has to win. Now this one is TV Friends from 1983, which is a Hanna-Barbera book, and the game is a Flintstones one called Fred and Barney's Zoo Quest. If you land on a dinosaur, you have to carry out the action associated with it, and you can see them listed in this close-up. The write-up reads, Fred's latest money-making scheme is to capture Stone Age animals for the Bedrock Zoo, and the first to finish wins. We get off to a slow start and make it more than halfway round before landing on our first dinosaur. And this one is a pterodactyl, and it says fly on 6 squares, and that brings him much closer to the finishing line. But the second player isn't too far behind, and things plod on slowly until player number 2 lands on a dinosaur. And this one reads, stay and eat grass until you throw an odd number. So it could be game over for him now. Unlucky roll, and player number 1 has enough to take him over the finish line. For our final annual, we have Transformers from 1984. And this one is probably the hardest game of the bunch, where a roll of the dice determines which direction you move. So there's a pretty high chance of just wandering about aimlessly. And for the counters, I'm using these vintage figures from my childhood. If you look to the left, you see the directional dial, and number 4 means I go to the bottom left, whereas number 1 means go to the top right. The aim of the game is to reach the castle in the upper right hand corner, and so far we're heading roughly in the correct direction. The rules don't explain what happens when you go too far in one direction. This could be interpreted as either your throw was void or you get to throw again. Anyway, after wandering about aimlessly for a while, both players are finally within reach of the castle. I finally decided to call it a day once the Decepticon player was next door to it, because it won't take much to turn up on the wrong side of the board again. Well, we've taken a look through 6 board games, through 6 vintage annuals, and it's interesting to look back and see what was on offer. And if you want a part 2, I should be able to scrounge together enough books to do so. So let me know in the comment below. And the next time you're passing a charity shop and you see some old annual for sale, take a look, see what you might discover. Thank you for watching. Don't forget, if I can do it, so can you.